We got Legends House premiering tomorrow, April 17th on the WWE Network, and we are very honored, very proud to welcome in WWE Hall of Famer, class of 2005, one of the greatest managers in pro wrestling history, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Jimmy, welcome to the Mike and Billy Show.
Hey, Billy. Hey, Mike. How you doing, guys?
Good. How you doing, man?
You know what? This is unbelievable. I pinch myself every day and say, did I really get paid for doing this my whole life? This is awesome, man. Just talking to y'all guys and down here in Florida at Hogan's Beach. I'm living the dream.
It must be down in Florida right now. We got snow this morning, for crying out loud.
We made it out of New York yesterday. We had a big press conference in New York yesterday with all the legends, and as we were leaving, it was starting to rain, and I was listening to the radio on the way out, and it goes, snow coming in. I went, oh, feet don't fail me now. Please.
Get me out of here.
Baby.
Yeah, hopping on the good foot, doing the bad thing.
It's all good.
So, I mean, we got Legends House coming up, airing tomorrow night, 8 p.m. A lot of hype behind Legends House. A lot of people waiting to see what you guys are going to be doing, what you guys are bringing. What can we expect from Legends House airing tomorrow on the WWE Network?
Well, kind of the unexpected. I'll tell you one thing you won't see is anything scripted because, you know, most of all the reality shows, which are doing great, I'm sure, but they're all scripted. You know, you hit him, he hits you, we knock over the plant,
right.
You know. But, you know, we had 16 cameras on us, no newspapers, no TVs for that whole 5 weeks we were there. No outside contact to the world. We couldn't, like I said, no cell phones, no anything for 5 weeks. So what you see is what you get. But it just turned out so good. You know, we just, like I said, I was so blessed to be picked to be one of the 8 members that were on the Legends House.
Now, it's got to be a little bit refreshing, though, without any paper, any cell phones. Almost like you can disconnect for a minute from all the fast-paced moving of the world, just to kind of, well, I guess not really chill out in Legends House, but at least disconnect for a moment.
Well, you couldn't chill out too much. You had to be alert what was taking place. I'll tell you that now. But the main thing is, you know what, you kind of go, can I really do without a cell phone? And you think, I can't.
Right.
All of a sudden we did. Can you make it without watching TV, the news, to see what's going on? It was unbelievable. I mean, when we do some of our little events that we'd have, we had a girl come over named Ashley from the Pussycat Dolls that came over once a week for like a contest that we'd choose a captain and have different teams. But it was so refreshing doing that. But there was a lot of crazy stuff happening in there. But like I said, nothing was pre-planned, pre-staged. It just kind of took place.
So not only do you get to disconnect from your cell phones and the news and all that, but you also have one of the Pussycat Dolls coming by every week. Jimmy, it doesn't sound too terrible.
Hey, it really wasn't. It was pretty good to see somebody on the outside world once in a while. But like I said before, you know, it was a bunch of us together. We really didn't know each other back in the 80s. You know, we might see Tony and go, hey, Tony, how you doing? Or see Gene when we did interviews.
Right,
Piper
right.
was always doing the pits, but Piper's pits. But at least we got a chance to really get to know each other, what we're doing now, what our families happened to them, and, you know, what was really going on. So a lot of trials and tribulations, I'll tell you that.
Now, you said, obviously, we got 8 members of the house, yourself, Roddy Piper, Tony Atlas, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Hillbilly Jim, Pat Patterson, Mean Gene Okerlund. Who was the most difficult roommate in the house?
Wow, you know, Piper was kind of the leader of the bunch and everything else, but Hacksaw and Tony kind of once in a while would get into a little scrape here and there. I don't want to say too much, but sometimes, you know, I think just from us being together, the same faces all the time, and eating at the table every night together and going through all this trials and tribulations, tempers did flare up, and there were a little bitty prima donnas once in a while, but, you know, it all worked out in the end.
8 grown men who have known to have personalities living together. It might get a little bit of friction every once in a while.
It was a little bit.
Drama shall ensue, so what you're saying.
Well, like I said, it was just, it's so hard to explain unless once you see it, then you'll go,
right.
You know what, I spoke to Jimmy Hart last week, and I know what he's talking about on this thing. It was just you know, we had guest stars to come by from time to time. Gary Busey came by one of the nights.
Oh, my God.
And he was so confused when I left. I was confused. I don't know what the heck. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I even? I don't know what I was even doing. So, but it turned out well. I'm just, like I said, honored that they put this on our WWE Network. You know, for $9.99 a month.
Oh, there it is.
Absolutely.
You know, but you can go back and see all your favorite matches from ECW to WCW to the WWF back in the day, and of course WWE now.
Yeah, it's and as subscribers of the WWE Network, I can speak for Billy as well by saying we have gotten very little sleep since we got it. I mean, just burning through the library. It's been so much fun, so exciting. Of course, you know, Wrestlemania last weekend was just phenomenal. We've said it on the show here, top 3 show for me of all time.
Well, that's especially think the way they opened up with Hulk, The Rock, and Stone Cold.
Oh my
together.
God!
I mean, that turned out unreal. Then the opening match, how can you do better than that when you see Triple H against Daniel Bryan? I mean, in the first 30 minutes, it was like, okay, I saw WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Then it just kept getting better and better as it went along. But, like I said, for us to be back at home, Hulk and myself back with the WWE again, it's just been a thrill for us. And then part of being Legends House is kind of the cherry on the whipped cream.
Now, that was something that I read, I believe, within the last couple of weeks. You're actually Hulk Hogan's manager, correct?
Well, I am, but I'm not. We've been together for 34 years, so
Right.
if that makes you his manager, I guess I am. But we've done so many great things together through the years, and a lot of times if I get
The WrestleMania, I was so happy. I marked out myself watching you on the panel on the WWE Network. I was so happy to just see the Mouth of the South on there. How many megaphones do you actually own?
Well, I've got about 10 now, but back in the day, we had so many of them back then. Of course, we put a lot of charities. I think Make-A-Wish has got one, and
Yeah.
a couple of the
Right.
Hard Rock's got one in New York and one in Orlando. So I kind of left a lot with WWE when I went to WCW. And then when I came back looking for all of it, we gave this here, this here, this here, but it's all good for a worthy cause. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you had megaphones for every person you were managing back in the day, so that was a lot of customizing and jackets as well, like
yeah.
you said.
Oh, yeah.
I think, when I learned that from Dick Clark back before you guys were born, I was part of a group called the Gentrys. We had a million-sell record called Keep on Dancing. Our first tour out of high school was with Beach Boys and Sonny and Cheryl on a tour that was called the Caravan of Stars. And Dick Clark pulled us all in a room, and he said, look, be on time, be dependable, but as long as you're on that stage and an entertainer, whatever you do, remember, if you dress like the audience, one day you're going to wind up sitting in the audience, which meant be colorful. So when I went to WWE, I kept the colorful jackets and the megaphone, and I think that's really helped me through the years.
Absolutely. I mean, you stand out, from every other manager that I can remember. Every manager had their different shtick, and certainly yours was the most colorful manager of all time.
Well, it might not have been the best, but doggone it, I was going to be the most colorful. I'll tell you that
You
right
definitely
now.
got noticed.
Yeah, there you go. And we were short storytellers like Paul Dangerously, I guess Paul Heyman now.
Right.
But his interviews are so great, always been great. But they have that 4 or 5 or 6 minutes to paint that picture. Back in our day, we had maybe 30 seconds or a minute. So
Right.
we were kind of short storytellers back then.
Now, speaking of your illustrious career, I mean, as you mentioned, 34 years now, Jimmy?
Yes, sir.
34 years. One of my favorite memories of yours, and I wasn't even born at the time, but I remember the storyline. I remember the all the clips that I saw. Was you and Jerry Lawler back in Memphis with Andy Kaufman.
All right.
And it's just still one of my favorite. What was it like working with Andy Kaufman? It's got to be one of the first celebrity appearances in wrestling, or that got such a big build to it.
Well, it was so great back then. When Andy came down, he was so great and gracious. But my job was to be with Andy after we initially shot the angle with Lawler and him. Then all of a sudden I started managing Andy on a lot of tapes that we did for about almost a year. So Andy would come down periodically and appear with us. I'd manage him. We'd fight Lawler. Then Andy and I would have our rip between us and fight each other. Then we'd go back tagging up against Lawler. But this went on for a year. But, he used to stay at my house some. We'd make some of the road trips together if we'd go from Memphis to Louisville or Evansville. And like I said, but he loved wrestling. Oh, my God, that's all he wanted to talk about when I was with him was just the Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers, and those were some of and Elvis Presley, us being from Memphis and me meeting Elvis twice back in the days of the Gentrys,
Yeah.
Wow.
We wanted to go by Graceland back then, and oh, my God, it was awesome.
Wow. Do you think Andy Kaufman should be Hall of Fame bound?
Absolutely. I think that what he did for us, but I think it's almost like you've got to be able to be part of the WWE, and it seems like that's who they really put in
Yeah.
if you ever appeared on one of their shows. But I think what he really did for the wrestling business that we didn't know at the time what was really taking place, I think it would be worthwhile him being in there since the movie did come out,
Right.
and fans are, with all that, like I said, that's one thing about the WWE Network. A lot of fans will be able to go back and kind of judge for themselves who needs to be on there or not just by them watching a lot of tapes from the other territories.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, as a as a huge Elvis fan, what was it like meeting him?
Oh, my gosh, I got to go meet Elvis twice. Once when I was 16 years old, my mother curled my hair, and she made me get on the stage and sing 16 tons with this show coming through town. And Elvis was in the back there, and it didn't do much for me back then at 16, but he told my mother, he goes, I have a pair of cufflinks like those earrings, because she had written a song for Red Foley, who was a big country star back then. And so, or Eddie Arnold, excuse me. And so the next time I got to meet him, I was managed by a guy named Marty Lacker on our Gentry deal. And Marty was one of Elvis's. If you look at the Memphis books, Memphis Mafia, George Klein got us into the music business.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Marty managed us, but he was a friend of Elvis, and he had to go by Elvis's one day before I went to the studio. So he said, come on with me. We went by there, and I stood in the little, by the steps, right, the little foyer right there, and Elvis came down in the bathrobe, and he goes, hey, Marty, what are you doing? And Marty had brought him something from the studio over there that Chip's Moment had given him, and he gave it to him, and he goes, who's with you? He goes, Jimmy Hart. He goes, how y'all doing? He goes, well, we're going to cut some music tonight. Hope y'all get a hit. Walked on back upstairs. But I'll never forget that. The last time I got to see him, unfortunately, was when he was in the casket.
Right.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be one of the first 100 people in line that George got me up front to see him there, and had that big ring on TCB and those big sideburns. And, oh, my gosh, what a thrill that was.
Amazing.
A bad thrill. It was a thrill to see him, but a bad way to see him.
But still, it's one of those where were you that within moments.
Oh, God, I'll never forget it.
Now, I mean, you were at the first WrestleMania. You were managing King Kong Bundy, and now, of course, back at the 30th WrestleMania. Did you ever think back then, I mean, that the industry and WWE could grow to what it is now? I mean, giant stadiums, big multimedia platforms, movies, everything. I mean, did you see it? I know, and the reason I ask is because you were at the first WrestleMania. Did you see it, I guess, in Vince, that this was possible for him to accomplish?
I had no idea. I was just happy to get out of Memphis at the time. Driving the cars everywhere, forward to a car, and I was in New York City flying on airplanes, and I'm in Madison Square Garden. On one side of the ring, there's Muhammad Ali. On the other side, there's Liberace, and over here is Mr. T, and Hulk Hogan. I'm going, oh, my gosh. But I had Greg Valentine on that show and King Kong Bundy.
Right.
And I know Vince put a lot into it. If it didn't work, we probably wouldn't be on the phone now, but praise the Lord that it did.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Now, getting into all media outlets, one of my other favorite memories of Jimmy Hart was Eat Your Heart Out, Rick Springfield. And Rick Springfield, and the reason why I say is because Springfield apparently is coming to the Boston area. What was it like recording the wrestling album?
Well, I met Cyndi Lauper's manager, Dave Buff, at the WrestleMania, and he goes, you had that hit with the Gentrys. He goes, I'm going to do a wrestling album. I'd like for you to contribute a song. So
Yeah.
I said, well, but I always like to kind of be the Weird Al Yankovic before there was Weird Al Yankovic of the wrestling business. After us came Weird Al. But all of my songs were kind of funny, kind of goo-goo gaga songs. Like in Memphis, we had We Hate School and Barbra Streisand's Nose and stuff like that. But I had each on it. Rick Springfield, he loved it. We cut it. Rick Derringer played on it. Cyndi Lauper sang backup on it at the time. And then that turned out to be good. The next album, we had 3 or 4 songs on it. So that led me to doing Randy and Liz's wedding song along with my partner Jim McGuire. Then we had a lot of the other songs, Sexy Boy Shawn Michaels, Honky Tonk songs, and it was I was living the dream in wrestling, which I loved, and doing music.
So do you ever contribute like with Jim Johnson at all, and still do, or are you just kind of you're more hands off and that's all Jim's department these days?
It's all Jim's baby. He's great. He's awesome.
Oh, he's
with everything they do. I love him. He's awesome. But I was kind of part of the '80s, and matter of fact, I think they got all that stuff released now out, and plus all the songs that me and my other partner did, Howard Helm, down in WCW, got about 100 and something songs on that people can go on iTunes and check out.
Yeah, I saw that. It's really cool.
National Hall to the Wolf Pack to Buffs the Stuff to one of Dusty's songs to one of Honky's, and so Nitro Girl stuff. So, like I said, I'm living the dream, baby.
and of course, due to the tragic passing of the Warrior, the WrestleMania 6 has been on the network quite often. So, of course, one of your other songs, Hunka Hunka Honky Love, has been on the network quite a bit.
Honky Dog Baby, Hunka Hunka, all of Honky's greatest hits.
The Rhythm and Blues and the Pink Cadillac coming down in the Toronto Sky Dome.
So good.
Man.
You know what? And you know who drove us there? Diamond Dallas Page.
Yes.
The guy driving the car.
Which it's one of those like hidden highlights, that you always go back and hear about, and you can actually now see on the WWE Network
Because it's HD.
Because it's HD, you can see DDP, the one and only DDP, actually driving you guys. It's incredible.
The WCW, former WCW of the world, driving the Honky Tonk Man and Jimmy Hart and Greg Valentine.
And the Honkettes.
And the Honkettes, baby.
We have Legends House premiering tomorrow night on WWE Network at 8 p.m. Jimmy Hart, it's been an absolute pleasure. And anytime you get to Boston, you got an open door policy here. Come on in. We'd love to do this again with you, brother.
I've got to eat at Papa Gino's.
Hell yeah, man.
Any place there. In and out. I love it. Hey, I love you guys. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy.